Hi guys. So I'm very excited, not we. Well, I'm hoping Miensie will be excited too. I'm very excited to say that Miensie of Knotty Habits will join us today, and we'll just have a nice casual chat as usual about yarn and everything yarn related. Sorry, I had to put that down. So yeah, she'll be joining us, and I'm really excited to just have a chat with her. As per usual, the main theme will be South African yarns and promoting South African yarns and South African yarn dyers and the South African yarn industry made by South Africans for South Africans. And yeah, Miensie is a well-known dyer, and she has a fantastic product. So we will be talking to her about that, and well, just asking her about her. It's also about meeting the maker and the person behind the yarn, so that when you go and you buy it, you will know exactly whose product it is and getting to know her better. So yes, we are very excited to welcome her to this meeting. As per usual, this is going to be a very casual meeting. I don't do a lot of editing with these. I like the natural feel of it. I've got my coffee so long, and yeah, this is going to be great. Miensie is here, but I can't see her face yet. So I'm just going to pause here quickly, and I'll get back to you now. Hi, Miensie. Welcome to our recording. How are you doing today? We already discussed it, but tell us again.
It's a Blue Monday a little bit. I just had a very early order, and I believe that if the money's in the bank, it needs to go out of the studio. It's not my yarn anymore, so I need to send it off. So I had to pack that parcel very quickly for this morning. So, but that's how it started.
Yes, Monday mornings are always interesting. So tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us about the motivation behind what you've started and how long it's been going on. And yeah, just tell us more about you.
Okay, Knotty started about 2 years ago. It's actually end of January, it was 2 years. And it all started with my kids leaving home. All three of my children are in America. And I was a full-time mom for so many years, although I had my crafts and my hobbies to keep me busy. But we lived overseas for a long time, for 10 years. And that's kind of restricted my own career in the fact that, you know, my husband got the visas to work overseas, and then I'm just there on his visa. So I was a full-time mom stroke corporate wife for a very long time. And then suddenly my kids are all out of the house, and they are in America. They are studying in America and married now, the oldest one. So it's not, I wouldn't say it was a real empty nest syndrome. It was just that I had more time to actually do something for myself. So I started spinning. It's something that I always wanted to do since a little girl. And with the spinning, as you know, the process goes on, and then you want to dye your spun yarn, and that's eventually how Knotty started. As I said, it's about 2 years now. I started on the stoop under the veranda of our house. And then about a year ago, my husband said, this is not working anymore, because the production just got so much, and I was in the sun all the time. Under umbrellas, but it got really hot here in Pretoria. So he actually gave up half of his garage. And this is where I am today. You can see the garage door at the back here. But he converted half of his garage into half of the half. So a quarter of the garage is where I'm sitting now, which is where my little table for my office part, as well as where the yarn is processed before it's dyed and after it's dyed. And then the other quarter of the garage, or half of the garage, is the dye studio itself. I run 7 plates, 7 double burners, gas burners at one time. The one gas burner is a little bit bigger, so that's where my pots are standing, the physical pots itself. The 6 burners are where my it's like catering pans, those big catering pans. So I can dye up to 18 skeins. I dye 3 in a pan. 18 skeins, more or less. It's never the same, because you know that. But I can try to dye up to 18 skeins of a colorway. I normally dye 6. I dye 2 pans in a colorway for the shop. But now for the yarn club that I've started in January, I've actually restricted it to 18 boxes per colorway. And that is because I can only dye 18 skeins at a time. I don't repeat colorways. I don't have recipes. Don't ask me to repeat certain things that I've done.
I know that one. Yes.
There are certain semi-solids that I can do, that I've got more or less a recipe for. The navy that I do is called Amalfi Drive. I can do that in all my bases. But as you know, with different bases, it takes up dye differently. So it's not always exactly the same. And then I've got a maroon, like a red maroon. It's called Rodeberg. It's my love for the Western Cape and the Boerland and red wine.
Our wine. Yes.
I just red wine, that is it. And I had plenty of this weekend. So the maroon is called Rodeberg. But it's those I can repeat. But like variegated and some other new colors that I mix, I don't write down anything, so there's no repeats in that.
Tell me about the yarn club that you just talked about. Just expand on that a bit.
That's the very exciting thing that's happening in Knotty's life at the moment. It's something that I've thought about last year through lockdown. You know, I follow quite a bit of indie dyers overseas. And because I lived overseas, I've got a big connection with some of the international dyers. There's an indie dyer in Norway. She's actually South African. I speak Afrikaans to her and she speaks English back to me. But she dyes under the name of Fjord Fibres, Fjord. You can really go and look at her. Jelly is her name. She's, as I said, South African. They've been there for quite a while. Their plan is to come back to South Africa to retire one day. And Jelly is very, very big into yarn clubs. That is something that she's extremely good in. And I kind of had a long chat with her through lockdown, end of last year, beginning of this year as well. And just why and how and what's the pros and cons about it. So she helped me a lot with the framework of what the Knotty Yarn Club would look like. So there are certain things I didn't want it to be. I didn't want it to be a yearly subscription, because that would just be too much money, and no one can afford it these days. I didn't want it to be a mystery box. I want the client to have some say in what they're going to get. You know how I work that out. Yeah. And then the third one that I didn't want it to be, I didn't want it to be like a theme box in the sense of a Harry Potter or some other TV series, because I don't really watch TV series, so I've got no relation to that. I can't relate to it, and I die out of my frame of reference. It's just something, if I can't, you know, I'm not going to watch some TV just to dye yarn. It's not going to happen.
The thing is, I watch a lot of HGTV, you know, so I don't know, home repairs, I don't know how I would dye that up, so I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I think the last time the TV in our house was on was actually with the Rugby World Cup. It's just something that we work basically all the time, because there's always something to do. There's always yarn to prepare. There's always something to do. So we don't watch TV that much. But then as you know, I've got this group of friends around me. I call them my Knotty crowd, and spelled with a K, because everything in Knotty world is spelled with a K. That club is. So it's just something that I like. So we sat down, and I said to them, okay, girls, this is an idea that I've got. This is the input that I've got from Jelly, from Field Fibers. How are we going to put this together? What are we going to do about it? So we came up with quarters. So the Yarn Club is running quarters. You can order by quarter, or you can order for the whole year, or you can order 2 or 3 quarters. That's the first thing. That's how we overcome the thing that it's not a yearly subscription. The second thing that we overcome with the fact is that the client has got a say, firstly, in the colorway they want. So I've made mood boards in a faint boards, which is your proteas, your pinkish, a little bit of green, can go over to a little bit of purple for some of the header in the felt, you know, something like that. And then the other mood board is Van Zyl, which is your blues and your greens and the sea colors.
Yes.
And then the third one for your naturals, I called Kalahari. I wanted it to be South African, real South African. So that's where the names come from. And it's also places and things that's very dear to me, that I can relate to. I can relate to fables. I love proteas. It's my favorite flower. Van Zyl is where our beach house is. That's where I grew up. And that's where we call in Afrikaans a hartsplek. Your heart is there. And especially for my kids, when we lived overseas, that's where we went whenever we came back to South Africa. So that's the house they know. That's their South African home. So that's why I called it that, named the colorway after Van Zyl. And then, so the client has got a say in which quarter they want to do that. The client can order from which color palette she wants. And then also what I've done with the Yarn Club itself is that there's, for the 4 quarters, 4 different bases, 4 different yarn bases. And it's all on the website. So the first base, this one that I've just dyed up, is the merino single. Plain 100% merino single, 360 meters on a 100 gram superwash. Then the second base will be the tweed. It's a 90% merino, 10% tweed. It's a new yarn base of Stukken. I love it. It dyes up beautifully. Especially, it's very similar to the single, except for the tweed. It's also a single, except for the 10% nep. And I called it tweed because, as you probably know, nep in the yarn world is a foreign matter in your yarn. Yes. If you spin and you get a little bit of grass, we talk about the nep in the yarn, okay? The foreign matter that comes into the yarn. So it's a terminology that's used in yarn world. It's not something that the clients always understand. And that's why I called it tweed. It's more something that they would understand with the yarn. You know, it's a little ball of foreign matter, which in this case is actually acrylic. It's 10% acrylic. It doesn't dye, doesn't take up the color from the rest of the yarn, so it keeps that brownish, blackish little color that's in between the yarn. It's really beautiful. So that would be the second quarter. The third quarter is the 4-ply. The 4-ply Euro socket score. I've just ordered my 100% merino light fingering 4-ply.
I've got that.
And then, I think you dyed it as well. That would be the third quarter, and the fourth quarter will be the merino linen, which is, I would say, probably my favorite yarn base. I love it. It's so soft. It knits up beautifully, the merino linen.
Yes, yeah.
So, and I wear it a lot because it's something with the 10% linen that you can wear summer and winter in South Africa. It's really, I've got a couple of sweaters and even shawls in that. I love that. So that's what the yarn bases will be. So that will give you the client another choice. And then the third choice will be that they will actually have a choice between the Yarn Club itself, which is the normal yarn basis, or a sock club, which will be only the queso sock yarn that we've launched earlier last year, which is the queso means knock your socks off.
Okay. I'm not always
It's
there. No, I noticed
the
something I don't
75%.
register.
It's the 75% merino, 25% nylon for socks. The fingering weight yarn for socks, and then that will be a club by itself. So that's got 4 quarters as well. It's got actually 4 colorways. It's got the Fynbos, it's got the Barnes Krantz, it's got Kalahari, but then it's got the Makwaland with it as well, which gives me a little bit freedom to go to all the colors that's in the flowers of the Makwaland.
That's nice. Yeah, I've looked at that base, but I can't do that one because that's the bulk one that you actually have to buy in bulk. And I don't particularly I don't like nylon in my socks. So I think in that respect, you know, people are very different, and there are a lot of people that actually insist on nylon in their socks. So I think that's a good one. Do you in any of your dye bases use like a DK weight, a thicker one, or are all of them more towards singles and classic?
No, I've got a 3-ply DK. A 3-ply DK that I personally like as well. It is excellent for color work because of the 3 plies. It makes the stitch definition really, really nice. I listened to your
winter base.
Yeah, it's a Stukken base. It's 100% merino 3-ply DK. It's a lovely base. It knits up really, really beautiful. Color work is great with it. Beanies are excellent with it. It's really, it's just a very nice solid base. It's not too thick for the South African market.
Yes, and I think it's more, but for me, the DK is, as I said before, I think mentioned this in previous actual episodes, but my winter base is a blend, is from African Expressions, from Israel. And I just find that there's a definite spot that people will buy it, and then there's a definite spot that they will not buy it. So summer in South Africa is way too hot for anything DK related. So do you also find that you will have like a thicker base in winter that will sell, but during summer it just sort of fades out?
I do a little bit, but I must say most of my clients actually knit right through the year. I'm very fortunate with that. I do have, you know, a little bit of a dip through December, January, but it's got to do with the holidays as well. But I have very steady clients that kind of knit with merino right through the year, and especially with merino because I don't dye cotton. I don't have a cotton base. I'm really, really blessed that I do have my clients knit or crochet right through the year.
Oh, okay. Have you ever tried dyeing cotton?
Once, I think. I don't know. I'm not fond of it. And I do believe that the cotton market is really, I don't want to say saturated because there's always place for something new. That's not the right word. But there are a lot of South African dyers that use cotton, and I feel they are very, very good in what they do. I just love dyeing my merino. It takes up the dye so much better in my eyes, and for me it works.
Cotton is far more labor intensive. I've dyed cotton, and I had a cotton base, and I'm probably bringing that back because I have a small market of people that can't even afford moya. So that's more where I'm going with it. But it is far more labor intensive, and if you have a shoulder issue, you need help to do that work, because as you said, the animal fibers pick up the colors. They just suck it up, where cotton takes far longer to
I mean, as you know, any yarn dyeing is labor intensive.
Well, that's true.
If you pick up all those and especially I dye about 300 skeins a month.
That's a lot.
That's 30 kilos of yarn. That is, and I buy my yarn in cones. I don't buy them already skeined. So I make my own skeins. Firstly, there's a quality control that I can have over my skeins. what they look like when I skein it myself. Secondly, the pre-skeined yarn that's coming from the mills are quite a bigger skein, and they don't always fit over my clients' swifts.
Yeah.
So I make a smaller skein. The normal skein from the mill is 180 centimeter skein. Mine is 150 centimeter skein.
Okay.
So it's easier to handle for them in on the swifts. And then thirdly, there's a cost involved.
True.
Per skein, you pay per skein or per kilogram extra for the mill to do that. If I can do it, yes, it takes my time. And yes, it is a lot more labor intensive. But luckily, I'm very fortunate to have an engineer for a husband, and he made a contraption on his drill, and we can actually do, at this stage, I do 2 skeins together. And in a question of, I would say, an hour and a half, I skein about between 3 and 4 kilos of yarn.
Okay, we're going to have to discuss that because, but privately, because I would love to have something in that direction.
It's not it's definitely not. I can actually show it to you. It's lying here. It's not fancy. It's just something that
doesn't have to be fancy, just functional.
front of his drill, and then it's done.
Yeah, it's okay. So it's like an electric spin wheel. It's the same type of concept. It's still a spin wheel.
No, it's his drill. It's his electrical drill that he would drill a hole into a wall.
Yeah.
And he put a round wooden disc on it with 2 prongs, and that goes over my vertical swift. And it turns my vertical swift.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, again, we'll have to discuss that at a later stage, but because I also like buying it in cones. Firstly, as you said, it works out much cheaper. But also I have that control. I find that I know everybody is into the whole figure 8 thing when they skein up the yarns, but I find that if I buy it like that and I dye it, it's far more prone to tangling than the way I do it, because it's too loose. It is way too loose. So I want it loose because I don't want the marks in between. But I don't want it so loose that I have to go and figure out where that strand was the last time I saw it, you know. So I completely agree with you. I prefer the cones as well. When I buy it from SA Mill, I do buy the cones. But at the moment from Sticken, I am, well, stuck with buying the already done skeins.
You know what? I'm really glad that that Stuken's got that online shop.
Yes,
because it opened up a door to a lot of smaller dyers, a lot of the natural dye people, that use botanical dyes, which would not have been able to dye yarn if you still had just the 30 kilogram limit that you have to buy.
Yes, no, and absolutely, and I think that was part of a ongoing fight at some point, and I'm really grateful that they changed that around, because the smaller companies just couldn't. I think a lot of the smaller companies just closed because they couldn't do that, you know. So I'm really happy about that. So for now, I'll just not stress about the skeins. I did see that they had the tweed one on that shop. So I was thinking about it. It's a good thing that we talked about that. I was thinking about buying in some and just checking it out, seeing how it works.
I think if you look at it, it dyes up anything like in a natural range really nice, because of the coloring of the tweed, of the net. What I found also is you need to do it in a lighter colorways, because if you go darker, you don't see the darker. You can see it, but it's not as profound, and it's not as striking as what you would do it, say, on a dark egg kind of green instead of a forest green.
Okay, well, that's good information as well. So let's talk about, when did you start knitting and crocheting? Where did the craft love come from?
the craft love is always, my mum is well, she's actually turning 85 today, so it's her birthday.
Hey, happy birthday to her.
Yeah, she is, my mum is actually left-handed, but she was taught right-handed in school to write right-handed because she grew up in very rural areas, and she actually rode on horseback to school, 25 kilometers every morning and 25 kilometers back. That was the closest school. Yeah. And they tied her left hand behind her back to force her to write with her right hand. We're talking about the 40s now.
Yes, it was almost a sin to be left-handed at that point.
And because of that, my mother struggles to do any craft work because she doesn't really have a predominant hand. No. And I mean, if she would take a fork and just beat an egg, she would take her left hand, but she can't write with it. But she knew that it was a problem for her. So she actually took me, I come from a very small dorpie or town that you know very well, Villiersdorp, and it was still smaller when I grew up. And she took me to the tannie in town who was known to be a knitter, and the tannie in town who was known to be a crocheter, and even the tannie in town who made dresses.
Oh, no.
So I was exposed to that, but not through my mum herself. My grandmother did a beautiful needlepoint work, a type of a cross stitch, but it's not really cross stitch. I don't even remember what the name of it is. I've got plenty of her work in my house. She did really beautiful, beautiful work. But I think that the love for fabric and texture fabric was always there. I don't know if you can remember in the 90s, there was a yarn shop, a material shop, a fabric shop called Cotton, what was it called? I'll remember it now. But it was a franchise out of Cape Town, and I actually bought a franchise for Johannesburg because we moved to Alberton in '88 from Cape Town, from the Western Cape, and I bought this franchise, and I had this shop where it was overdyed denims and t-shirt yarn for children. My kids were small at the time, and I used to bake my kids' clothes, and then it changed to Van Us interior children's bedrooms at one stage after I sold my franchise. So that was in the 90s. I had that for 4 years before we moved to the US. So I've always been in crafts, but more at that stage, more into materials and fabric and making clothes and made bedding for my kids and duvet covers and stuff like that. And then, the kids started doing sports, and you sit next to the sports field and you sit and you sit and you sit, because my youngest child is a baseball player, and that's a really 3-hour game. So then I started crocheting and went over to knitting. I'm not the best knitter, and I will admit that. I'm busy with my first ever top-down knitting jersey that I'm doing under Maori's So Faded, with yarn that I actually dyed myself in a fade for the specific. It's the first ever yarn that I dye for myself, ladies. I've never dyed for myself. I'm actually really good. My friends always say, I don't know how you do it, but I won't take yarn from the shop.
Well done. I take yarn from my shop all the time.
No, it's just something that I don't do. I don't know why. I just don't take yarn from the shop. I will take the skein that I'm not happy selling with. I will take the skein that I'm not happy selling. Yes. That I will. My husband's socks have all got flaws, little dye flaws in them, because it's a skein that I didn't want to sell. I just gave my brother over the weekend a pair of socks that I knitted for him. That it was a great pair, and as you know, if you're not careful with grey dye in the pan, it breaks into purple.
Yes.
So I've got this sock is, when I did the skein, I pulled it up and I saw that there was like purple in it. And I mean, there's no way that you can sell that kind of skein. I won't sell it. So I knitted a pair of socks for my brother. So he's got this pair of grey socks with little lines of purple here and there.
Well, if you look at it like that, then you just should have sold it as a different color than gray.
Yes, I know, and sometimes I do, or I will tell the client, listen, this is a grey, but it broke into, there's some purple, but I mean, she would use it with some maroon or something, then it won't matter. But I won't sell it as a pure grey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, there's this one lady I've been following, and I mean, I don't follow her on a personal level, but she's an interesting dyer. And I'm busy with the sock recording that I'm doing in Afrikaans. It's her pattern.
Yeah.
Because I actually like the way she writes a pattern. It's very simplistic, and also the tutorial she has on YouTube is great. It's Kristen Lero, Woolenvine. And she's got this range of, I saw it the first time with her, is those little mistakey ones that she calls it Strange Brew, her Strange Brew series. And she just sells it for she still sells it, but she gives a huge discount on it. So she's very open and honest that these were boo-boos in the dye part, but she still gets it sold, you know. So that's
there's a dyer in the US that I've actually started following before I started dyeing myself. It's a lady, her name is Fibre for the People. And she's got a whole range of, she calls it her lucky strikes. And what she does is, after each dye session, she would wash all her utensils, all her pans, the first rinse of her pans, the utensils, everything, and she would keep that water. And she would dye in that water.
Okay.
So it's a combination of everything she dyed that day. So it's a color that she will never, ever be able to replace or repeat. And I actually started doing that. I would wash all my utensils in a bag, in a bowl, and sometimes it would stand there for a week. And then I was, okay, then I throw it in the dye pans, throw some yarn in it, and okay, this is the color. So what do we do with it? And then I start speckling and I start playing. And I can tell you 9 out of 10 times, that's the yarn that sells first.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. I think we're all in that process when we're dyeing. Do you ever find that, okay, you said that you don't repeat, you don't have many repeats. And for me, the reason behind that, I don't have many repeats either, except for the tonals, because really the tonals is like, it's the same color that you are mixing all the time. But the minute you start getting more creative with your yarns, trying to repeat that process, I felt in the past, messes with my creativity. You know, do you feel the same way about it?
I think it restricts me. Yeah, I do think it puts a lot of restriction on myself. And well, you know, I've got in this other things that I don't consider myself really an artist. And then people laugh at me when I say that. And it's just something that I don't think myself as an artist. I play with color. That's how it's my playing room. But I do have a problem when it comes to repeat things, and then I feel like I'm becoming a factory.
Yes. Yeah. No,
and I don't want to be that.
Exactly.
I don't want to be a mass producer and factory. I don't want to do that.
And there's plenty of room for that in the
there are plenty, and I take my hat off to someone like Cowgirl Blues, to Bridget. She is amazing. Donna is absolutely wonderful with color spun.
I'm having
and I have a lot of respect for both of them, but I don't want to do that.
I'm having an interview with Donna somewhere, I think next week.
Now, I've got a hell of a lot of respect for both of those girls, but I just don't think myself, and even Karen from Miss Lamotte. I love Miss Lamotte yarn. That's what I used to work with before I started dyeing myself. And the way that she has these colorways, and she can put it on all her different bases, and I'm like, wow, I don't see myself doing that. So there's a place for me, and there's a place for you that's doing these ones-offs, and there's a place for them. And that's perfectly fine, and we fill the market, and I'm okay with that.
Okay, so let's go to filling the market. As we've discussed before, and you know my passion behind this, is the South African yarn market and seeing it grow from South Africans to South Africans. What's your take on that? How do you feel about that?
I and you also know I'm a farmer's daughter. I grew up on a farm, and it's very close to me. It is something that will always be part of me. So I believe that we have to use South African products. I'm very reluctant to think that I would one day import a yarn base and dye that. Not that there's not a market for that, and there's nothing wrong with people who's doing that. Really, it's not something that I'm judging or anything like that. I just feel that we've got the best merino in the world. The people outside of South Africa are importing from South Africa. So why would we want to import from outside again? So it's just my take on that. And I feel that I want to use South African products. Our farmers need it. They need it desperately, especially the sheep farmers and the mohair farmers that go through a terrible, terrible drought still till today. That part of the Karoo where you get the mohair from is very dry. They've got the worst drought that they've ever had. And support our own products. That's the only way we're going to sustain ourselves. Not the yarn market. South Africans are going to sustain ourselves.
Yes, I completely agree. I stay with this motto. I understand that a yarn shop has imports. I mean, for instance, working through Saprotec, and I did that now, and it's interesting because they have a definite system. So unless you have a brick and mortar shop, physical shop, they won't supply to you, which is fine. I mean, they have their principles concerning that. But if you have a small yarn shop and somebody wants acrylics and your small yarn shop happens to be online, then you can't get it from them. And then you are sort of forced to get acrylics that's imported. And even then, I'm very hesitant with it. I don't like that. I would prefer to be able to buy, if you have to use acrylics, which many people do because they have charity work. And
there's a place for that. There's a place for acrylic.
Yes,
there's definitely a place for acrylic.
I mean, my aunt does charity work. She knits for the children's home. So, I mean, there's no way you're going to do that even with cotton. So it's just be a total waste. But at the same time, if you're going to buy an acrylic, just check the label and make sure it says made in South Africa before buying it, because especially that we have just a good range of acrylics that you can buy in most commercial yarn shops. So yes, I have the same, I don't know if I told you about this, but or if you know about this, we did a workshop, a friend and I did a workshop in Caledon or Bredasdorp a while ago, last year. And that was really so much fun. But one of the things I realized there, and the yarn, the sheep gets sheared, the wool goes to PE or East London or somewhere in that direction. And that's one part of the season where the men actually work, and they usually are on the farm busy, but the women have no extra income. And it's almost one of the things about the South African yarn market that has gone so far overseas instead of staying in South Africa is that these women have they don't work with the yarn. They don't work with the wool that has been sent out. Everything is sent out. And we actually found that a lot of those women are so talented. I mean, they pick up.
I don't know.
Like that.
I know that there's a movement starting in Bredasdorp to do something to do with the velveer.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the lady who started that is working with one of the farmers, Henk Achenbach, who is a personal friend. We actually grew up together.
Oh, fantastic.
So Henk, or Henkie as I call him, because
Yes.
that's what we used to call him when he was young.
I wonder if it's not Elise that's still busy with him. Elise was with me when we did the workshop. I know Elise is still busy with him, and I know the other two ladies that I worked with was Antoinette. She's one of the farmers' wives, and then I can't now. Rini, that's the other lady that I worked with, and they're all part of that FIA movement thing. Yeah.
I talk to him quite often, and it's I mean, he's one of the big farmers there in the area, between Bedaarsdorp and Barnhuiskrans.
Yeah, I know.
So I've actually spoke to him on the 10th of February. It was his birthday. So we talk a lot as well. So he would talk to me about, I buy the already spun yarn, and they are processing the yarn and things like that. So I have bounced up some ideas from him and him from me. So I know about that project. There's another one. I don't know if you know about Annie Lane. Annie Lane. It's a brand out of Smithfield.
Yes. I think
she's
you
on a
told me
farm.
about it. I went to look for her.
Yeah.
Yes.
Annette Vogel is her name. She's a farmer's wife in between Smithfield and Bepener on a sheep farm. And she's actually my cousin's neighbor, and that's how one of the reasons how I've met her. She taught the ladies on her farm to spin, and if you go and visit her on the farm, they sit on the veranda. After some of the ladies are actually have work in her house as well, so they've got tasks in her house, either doing the washing or something. And then when they're done, they go and spin. And they sit there, 3 or 4 ladies from the farm, from the workers on the farm, and they sit and spin. And then what she also does, she gives she dyes the yarn, and superwash and non-superwash, both of them. And then she would give it to ladies in the community to knit beanies or whatever patterns that she has developed. And then she would have I think she would have 2 big expos that she used to go to in Bloemfontein. And that's where she sells all these already or kits and it all comes from the people living on her farm.
That is such a fantastic idea, and I think the more we can, if we can do more of that. I live in Worcester, as you know, and but I'm living in town, and I was actually I've got the papers with me. I must just fill them in. This year has just been, that was from, say, September, somewhere around that time that I actually got the non-profit organization papers that I could fill in. And then things went a bit crazy. So, I think, again, COVID, the whole situation at the moment is freaking everybody out. Not so much COVID itself, but the true repercussions behind it. And the up and downs. I don't know how you've experienced that, but in my case, the 1 minute, okay, all right, we're moving on, and then the next minute we have new restrictions. So I think that the up and down of things.
Yeah, I do think that affected, but I also know from friends overseas, from my kids overseas, we are still really lucky.
I know. I know.
There are so much worse restrictions overseas.
I know. London is.
I mean, my youngest son in April last year was basically locked up in a residence hall on American University campus, and he called it his jail because he got an email every morning of what the hour it was allowed for him to be outside, because they sent all the kids home. And because he's an international student, we applied and asked if we can stay on campus, because my husband just said he just knew that if we will let him come home, he's not going to be able to go back.
It's going to be a struggle.
So luckily we made the decision not to let him come home and applied for him to stay on campus. But they put so much restrictions on. There was only 10 of them. that was allowed back on campus and in one hostel or residence hall, as they call them, and they wouldn't allow them to talk. They wouldn't allow them to socialize at all. They had a guard in front of their gate, in front of the hall, the front door, and I at one stage was really worried about my son. He's an active kid. He studies physical education. He needs to go to the gym, you know, and I think we were a lot more free here in South Africa.
Yes. And also, I think we have a very different system here because, well, we love our country, but you know, we've got a system where people get away with stuff. Where I think, which is not a good thing, but it is a fact. I know a friend of mine lives in London, a very old friend of mine, and she said, you know, you can literally hardly move. It is the restrictions are far, and especially now the last spike they had, it was again, I mean, it was completely locked up.
But then on that note also, with the restrictions came last year with the hard lockdown, a really big increase as soon as we were allowed to send parcels out. A really big increase in sales for my yarn. I really had an unbelievable growth in my client base, and it's just about people sitting at home and now they had a little bit more time to actually craft.
So yeah, that's what I think I asked Lauren the same question. Do you actually see the positives in the yarn market? In other words, because, and also not just the yarn market, but I think crafting in general, where people got back to this concept that you can use these two things and make something. Do you think there was a fear element behind that as well, that people thought, I won't be able to go to a shop and buy clothes again as well?
I don't think it was fear. Definitely in the cities, it was a question of having more time, because, you know, we just don't rush, because as I think we've had the discussion before, the pace of life is so fast in any city, that when we were shut down, it's like, okay, now I've got time to bake that bread that I've always wanted to bake, or bake that cake that I've always wanted to bake, and not just pass the taste novet and pick it up and rush home, because you're not going to have time when you get home to do that. And it's the same with the knitting and crocheting. I also believe that a lot of people that had that time actually found that, you know what, this is good for me, and is carrying on with it.
Yes.
It was not just a once-off thing. So it was not that we saw the spike and now it's like this.
No.
We saw the spike and it's plateauing up definitely, but it's definitely more than what it used to be. And then the other positive thing that I absolutely love is the age.
Yes.
The age of people.
That's fantastic. Yes.
The age of people that's knitting and crocheting, and I can actually see it I know you can as well, with if you go into your Instagram and you see your insights of what the age of the people are that's following you, and with Facebook you can see it, and it's amazing that my highest percentage of the followers that I've got on Instagram is actually between the age of 28 and 42.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
And to me, that was my busiest time as a mum. I mean, I don't think I've actually thought of knitting or crocheting when I was 32 years or 33 years. I was doing nappies and feeding and doing all these other things with babies. So to me, that is amazing that we can have that age group of and female and male. I've got both sexes of customers that is interested in natural yarns, either spinning, either weaving, crocheting. It's not just crocheting and knitting. I mean, these yarns
come back as well.
Weaving,
I've noticed.
Weaving is huge. It's huge. And Glynis with her weaving workshops and she's actually got now, I don't know if you knew, she's got a Patreon page now that you you pay a monthly fee, and she gives you 2 Zoom sessions. That's then as part of your patronship, and then she gives you these classes that you can do via Zoom.
Well, I
So you
might
don't
actually consider that, because I want to learn to weave, but YouTube just isn't doing it for me.
Now you know what, you go Glenys Brook. She's one of the Ashford. Yeah. And she started this Patreon. It's on her website. You can join her patronship, and it's really, and the people are weaving with natural yarns, unbelievable stuff. It is so beautiful.
Yes, and I think if we get back to the point of making our own stuff, and that's interesting what you talked about, the age gap. I remember this, and this was pre-COVID, actually, 2019 somewhere, that I was at a market, because I love going to the markets. I absolutely love doing that. And this kid came up, and she was like 8 or 9 years old, and she said she wanted to buy that yarn, but it wasn't cotton, it was actually merino. It's a skein of yarn. And I asked her, "Oh, are you buying that for your granny?" She looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Oh no, I'm not." And it's like, and it was so nice to see that. And I think what you're talking about, like from 28 years old, okay, if you see it in the perspective that those women often have small children, that means that those small children will also get involved in the crafts again. And most of us say we learned this. I didn't learn anything from anybody except YouTube, actually, to do it. But my inspiration came from my grandmother. I'm looking right straight into a table cloth thingy that she made for my aunt, and it's beautiful. So you find inspiration, even if you don't learn from that person, you actually do find from that inspiration.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely.
So now, except for the clubs, the yarn club that you're doing now, any other future plans?
Yes, there is a little. Miensie's head is always full of plans.
Hamster syndrome, nee?
Yeah, something like that. I sleep very little at night, so there's always things going around in my head. It's a little bit under wraps still, but it will happen in July. We will probably launch it, I would say, middle May, somewhere there, beginning of May, middle May. I love doing collabs. I've been doing quite a bit of collabs with Brent from Yarn.
Yes.
That I dye specific stuff for her. I've got 3 shops that's part of my Knotty Crown, 3 retail shops. And at this stage, I don't think I will expand to more of that. It's just something that it's just not, it's the same amount of work if I prepare yarn for a wholesale order or I prepare yarn for my own shop. It's exactly the same amount of work. There's nothing less or more about it. But it's the amount of work to me doesn't always equal the profit I get from a wholesale order.
Yeah, it doesn't really validate it, and it is a lot more stress. It is a lot more stressful. I found it a lot.
I mean, the yarn is expensive by itself. So if you put value add onto it by dyeing it and scanning it and making it beautiful, it is a big thing. And then to cut profits and things like that because of wholesaling, I just feel I've got my 3 shops. They were with me from the beginning. And that's my other, it's one of my biggest positives in my life, but it's also one of my biggest negative things that I have, and that is that I'm extremely loyal. I am extremely loyal, sometimes to my own detriment, but I am extremely loyal.
No.
And that is just something, if you've started to walk the path with me from a very early start, then I'll walk with you. So I've got the 3 shops, and that is how it's going to stay. I know you've also asked if you can stock my yarn, and I told you very nicely, I'm sorry, I can't. But it's just, and you're not the only one, Elmarie. There were a lot of,
it's fine.
There were a lot of requests, but it's a decision that I made. It's not always an easy decision. I mean, sometimes you kind of second doubt yourself, but it's a decision, and it comes down to a business model that we decided to follow. That we will be in a lot of new ideas coming out and things that we want to do ourselves under the Knotty label and market it at ourselves. And hopefully at the end it's going to be worthwhile. So far it works.
And it does. I think when you started bringing out this, like the sock blockers and stuff, and again, I mean, I talked to you about that, and then afterwards I realized, you know what, to stock that on my side will mean mass production on your side. And I don't do mass production, so I'm not going to expect that from anybody else. So I think in that respect, I completely understand. And I supplied wholesale. And speaking about loyalty, that's for instance, the first person that contacted me was Bronwyn from Knit Shop Love about wholesale, and I supplied wholesale to her. And if I have to supply wholesale again, which I seriously doubt I will do, but if I did, I would supply to her again. So I completely understand what you're saying. And three shops to supply to is already, hey, I take my head off for you. I wouldn't even do that. I would stick to a maximum of 2 because but that's also a personality thing. I just spoke about the hamster syndrome. I truly have the hamster syndrome, and my hamster just never sits still, not even if I try and feed it. So I completely understand.
These are once again, this lady that I follow in the States, Fibre for the People. She doesn't wholesale at all. Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. She's got this huge following. I think she's got like 21,000 people following her on Instagram. And she's got a YouTube channel that she talks about knitting and crocheting and her life with her 2 boys. I don't always have time to watch all the other stuff. I sometimes take like an hour and I kind of catch up on all her dye videos. But it's just, she just also made a decision that she's not going to wholesale. She says it's something that is something that she's going to do. The big trend in South Africa nowadays, and I don't know if you saw it. Well, it's not a new thing. Marlene from One of a Kind has got her Sunday afternoon shop updates, and she basically sells out within hours. Yama does it once a year. She's got a big overseas market. She's basically sells out within hours, if it's not a half an hour. And the same with Wishbone. They also do these like monthly shop updates. I, on the other hand, want to have stock in my shop. I want to.
You want to have, okay, yeah.
I want to have. If you go on my shop, I don't want it to say sold out.
Yeah, no, neither do I.
I understand.
Sold out, but it doesn't.
I understand why they do it, and I understand that they're that popular, and everyone is sitting there waiting for it to go live and push the buttons. And Fibre of the People actually does it in the same way. She also has a monthly shop update. I just feel I want to have something in my shop for that person who says, I want to start a project now and I want something now. Miensie, what do you have? Yeah. And then the other thing is I am also open to custom orders.
Okay.
I do custom orders.
Yeah, no, so do.
Yeah, I do, where if someone sends me a picture and said, I've seen this and can you dye me some yarn that looks like this? Or Miensie, I want a specific color in whatever. So I've done a lot of custom orders. so people, I'm always open. They contact me all the time. That is one of the things that I will never, ever shut the door. You can phone me, you can send me a WhatsApp, you can contact me on Instagram or Facebook. Whenever you want to talk to me, I might not answer that WhatsApp immediately because I might have gloves on and I'm behind the pot, but it will be answered and I will talk to you. And I love that my clients can contact me even on a Sunday night sometimes and said, I've just been accepted for this test knit. What do you have? I've looked at your online shop. Can we pair this? Can you send me a picture of these two yarns together that I saw on your online shop? So I do that, and then on Sunday we send the parcel off. Monday morning we send the parcel off. So I want there to be yarn in my shop always, even if it's just 1 or 2 skeins. Sometimes it gets sold out and I have to fill it up again, but I want yarn on my shop.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I feel the same. For me, as I said, I'm really only finding my feet now again after really 2 years of not dying, but being very stagnant. And at the moment, yeah, those shop update ideas sound a bit more towards my spectrum, really, because I'm doing very small batches at a time. And if the shop update sells them out, then I can buy new yarn to get stuff going again. But at the same time, I don't know, I'm moving more towards hand spuns and doing them from scratch. So you don't have a hand spun series? No.
I don't even have time to hand spun my own fiber that I had and I bought before I started Knotty. I love spinning. As I told you, that to me is probably more relaxing than any knitting or crochet can ever be. It is that repetitive drawn and it is, to me, that is amazing.
You don't need
I have some ideas about spinning and things that I want to try, but that's just the hamster, as you said. That will, if I've got it more down to the T, I'll let you know.
Yes, no, that's my idea actually, is to just, because I've got lots of fiber. I've got lots of fiber, and I've been blessed with a lot of them. So they actually, what I'm looking at is like a lot of already tops that have been rolled down. So I'm more into that at the moment. But I think each of us has their own direction, you know. Okay, let me think. Is there anything else I want to ask you? Because I think we're running out of time. The last time, you know, we chatted on WhatsApp, it was 1 hour and 15 minutes.
And you know, my husband said to me, "What are you doing on the phone? Because I don't hear you talk." So someone else talks a lot as well.
I do have a way of doing that. My husband usually asks me, did they actually get a word in there? I mean, did they actually have time to speak? And the worst of all is the more tired I get, the more I start babbling. So early in the morning and late in the evening, if you want to have time to actually talk, please don't phone me. Miensie, it was a pleasure to have you here. As per usual, I will be putting up your site name and your contact details down below in the description box of YouTube.
Anytime.
Yeah, and as you said, people can contact you for custom dyes and not for wholesale, but for custom dyes they can contact you. And
no, not for wholesale.
Not for wholesale. But you also have the shops that are stocking your yarn, and that will be Yarn. And the other two?
Natural Yarns has got a little bit at the moment.
Okay.
Not much, but she has a little bit. And then
yeah.
The Yarn Tree in Johannesburg.
Okay.
The Yarn Tree in Johannesburg is they were actually the first shop who ever bought from me. So they've got their own business model. They do a lot of kits. They import sketches. They do a lot more with the cottons, and then they've got a very small merino section. But my loyalty will be with them till the day I stop with Knotty, because they were actually the first shop who bought wholesale from me.
Okay, so their name will be at the top of the tree.
Yep,
And I'll add their websites too, so that people know if they can't buy directly from you, where they can find it in the area, because sometimes people
their names are actually on the website. You'll see there's a Knotty crowd, and under there the stockists are, and they are just some of my designers who work with me a lot. Jonita that you've spoken to from Joannette, Sonia van Beek from Designs by Sophia. Adela Marais works with me quite a bit as well. And Itzy Klein, I have to quickly talk to you about Itzy Klein. Itzy Klein is a young lady who is 30, I think she's 31, maybe 32, 31, 32. She does my software for my for the website. She's a software engineer. But behind that is a young girl who knits unbelievable. That kid is so unbelievable with everything she does. And she is actually doing stitch markers as well for the Yarn Club. So, and I've got some of her other stitch markers on the website. So Itzy Klein will be represented in the Yarn Club boxes as well. So there I give you a little hint of what it will be.
I'll find Itzy Klein as well and put her on.
You can put Itzy Klein on there. Jekyll Veersies is one of my best friends who does the most amazing amigurumi. She's actually in my personal little group of, we are 5 ladies who knit and crochet together once a week. And that is my safety spot. On Wednesday mornings, you will not find me behind the dye pots. I put on my rings, which I never wear, and I put on lipstick, and I take off my clothes that I dye in, and I go out and I go crochet and knit with my 4 friends who I've been doing this before I even started Knotty. And that's my safety spot and my little bit of sanity that I find. And I don't care if they knit with Knotty, and I don't care if they knit with acrylic. I don't care, as long as I'm not behind the dye pots.
I understand. Oh, I haven't found anything like that in Worcester. I think there are some things that are so different from Gauteng and from Pretoria and from those areas. You know, I think that type of groups, but even in the city. In Cape Town City, because I hear of this group doing this and this group doing that. In Worcester, there's groups for nothing. So maybe I should just try and start one, but I have done before.
Maybe that's something you need to do, Elmarie. Start a social once a month. If you want to start with once a month, a social. And what they do up here is they charge for the coffee and something to eat, say 30 Rand or 45 Rand, depends on what coffee you're serving. And let them sit around the table and chat and knit, and everyone brings their own knitting and crocheting, and that is how our group started.
No, that's true, and I've tried that. But you coming from Villiersdorp should know what I'm saying. It's rather difficult to start something like that in a rural area, especially in the Western Cape. I don't know why there's this cliquey thing happening. So it is a bit more of a challenge. But I think, seeing as we are in level 1, it might be a bit easier now.
Yeah,
people started doing this stuff again.
If you start with 2 people coming on, say, a Wednesday morning or whatever, it will grow. I'm telling you, it will grow.
I'm taking that advice. We do that.
Yeah, we are actually in our specific group. We decided not to take any more people in. Firstly, 5 people is a lot to sit around the table. Not all of our houses can actually host more than 5, because we actually make turns of hosting. And to me, it's just for me personally, and I've told this to my friends all the time. We don't see each other during the week. We're not walking through our front doors all the time. But on a Wednesday morning, I go out and I visit and I kind of catch up with normality, if I can call it like that, because dyeing, as you know, can be a very lonely job. You sit behind your there's no social interaction while you're doing it.
No, definitely not,
So
because you're working with acid and you're working with stuff around you.
And it's a very lonely job. I mean, the contact with the clients at the end of this whole process, when you're selling the yarn, that is nice and sociable and really. But doing the job itself, there's no social, any interaction.
Yeah.
So it can be very lonely.
And it can also be very, as I said before, you know, depending on what you're dyeing and how much you're dyeing and whether you are actually the only person dyeing. I think if you have help, if you have almost a factory type setup where you have people working for you, that's a different ball game. It has its own stresses and its own worries, but then you're not doing it all on your own. But if, like with you and me and some other hand dyers that basically do it all on our own, yes, it does get, you do get a very closed off from real life, you know. So
yeah, it's like someone would say to me about lockdown. I said, I don't think anything changed that much for me when lockdown happened. It was kind of, okay, I'm just carrying on with what I'm doing.
My husband and I, we're not very social people. My mother-in-law said to me the other day, oh no, she said to him, you are antisocial. And I don't think of myself as antisocial. It's just I don't really like big groups of people, COVID or no COVID. So I completely understand what you're saying. But at the same time, you do need to, especially if you, maybe you can, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but if you are actually selling your product, you do need to interact with the people that you are selling it to.
Yeah, no, you have to.
Otherwise, you don't know your market and you don't know your people. But that's where the markets come in for me. That's what I love.
Yeah, you have to. I also do a market here in Pretoria once a month. It kind of was up and down with COVID and stuff. We cancelled the end of February because of things that's going on. It's at a coffee shop in Rittondale in Pretoria. It's called the Stoepmark. And it's just yarn related at this stage. It's very small. It's myself and Colors of Amalfi. Colors of Amalfi, Mariki van der Merwe. She sells some African expressions, and then she's also the sole importer of tulip hooks. So she does that. So the two of us normally next to each other. It's on a stoop, open. So that will definitely take over in end of March again. And then in April, we're doing crochet for cancer for crochet for cancer. They also have a yarn market at that event. So I will be there as well. I love markets. I was down in Cape Town for the Cape Town Yarn Festival.
Yes. Yeah, so but I don't think we really talked to each other. It was such a busy day that
I don't think I said afterwards to Lou, you know what, I never had time to go and say hi to Elmarie because I know of you and we've spoken on Instagram and I just never had time to go and actually go introduce myself.
Neither did I. I mean, it was such a busy day. It was fantastic, really. But what I will say is my husband comes through to that side very often, not very often, say once every 2-3 years because he has to. His license for gas, his gas license needs to be renewed. He's in the gas industry. So then I will say, you know what, there's this place that I really want to go see, and then I'll contact you.
Well, you just let me know. There's even place to stay here. Okay.
Oh. Okay, Miensie, we're gonna have to love and leave each other now because this video is getting very long. And you know how you said when you commented online, I don't really have time to watch this entire video now. It always gets really long, but it's lovely to talk to you in person. I think more than ever, we need to know who is the maker behind that. You know, we need to meet each other on a personal level, and this is the personal level that we're stuck with for now.
It was really nice speaking to you, Elmarie.
Okay, we'll talk again. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, jy's nog daar.